Okay, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, High Interoperability with Magnolia's Open Suite Approach. Thanks for joining us today. Today's webinar, we're joined by no less than 3 of Magnolia's certified partner, plus Boris Kraft, Magnolia's Chief Technology Officer. Our partners will introduce themselves as they present their various integrations with Magnolia, and Boris is going to present an overview of the subject of Open Suite, what that actually means and how that fits in terms of customer experience management, which most of you are probably more familiar with. Please submit questions throughout the webinar. We look forward to receiving them and we'll do our best to answer all of them at the end of the webinar. And shortly after the webinar, a few days afterwards, we'll be emailing all of you with links to the video recording, slides and further reading. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Boris, who will introduce himself and the first presentation set for today.
Hi, my name is Boris Kraft, CTO and one of the founders of Magnolia, a content management system that we have started developing in 2003. We're headquartered in Switzerland with subsidiaries around the world, and we have, as you know, a lot of large-scale clients that do very interesting projects with Magnolia and have demanding requirements that they just might share with you. And that is one of the reasons why we have coined the term Open Suite and why we have this webinar today to explain to you how our approach fits with your needs. So let me get started. This is a slide just showing some of the results you would get if you look for customer experience management on Google image search. And as you can see from here, there are lots of different slides if you want, lots of different images, and this is really the case when you talk about customer experience management. It's a bit difficult to understand what everybody means by it and if technology is even really what it needs to solve it. So why is customer experience management interesting for us and for you? That is actually fairly easy to explain. As you all know, in the last couple of years, the channels have exploded, and with channels we mean digital communication channels, things like the smartphone, things like smart TVs, in-car entertainment, Google Glass obviously comes to mind, and still the web and mobile apps, as well as more than 30 others. And if you have to communicate as a communication manager or as a head of marketing across all these different channels, you will start to analyze how these channels work and to see where you get the best return on your investment. So the analytics part is really important. And at the same time, you will want to start to personalize your messaging across those channels. And this basically in a nutshell is what web experience management is all about. Now if we randomly pick one of the images that we see here, or not quite randomly, this is Forrester explaining their notion of customer experience management. And as you can see, they put on the top here the web content management part, and around it personalization, marketing automation, commerce platforms, as well as search, analytics, and customer service interaction management. And this is just one example. Of course, there are other images out there where you have a lot more tools around it, but the general notion is that you use at least personalization, content management, and analytics to be able to measure your return on investment and communicate in a personal or personalized manner with your customers mainly, or your citizens or members. And that in a nutshell is customer experience management. Now to do this, there are a number of tools involved, as we can see here, and there are basically two approaches to provide these two. There are two approaches to provide this suite of applications. And basically there is the buy everything from one vendor approach, where you get a pre-packaged solution, a suite of tools, and you know that the large content management and software vendors on this planet are gobbling up companies and trying to build something that looks like the image that you see here. It's it's all perfect, you got all the things that you need, and in reality, of course, it often looks a little bit more like that, a little bit less integrated. But basically, that's not even the main concern about buying a complete suite from one vendor. One of the problems that they have is that marketing really provides us with a lot of tools, and no matter how many tools you buy as one vendor, you cannot provide more than, let's say, 1% of the functionality that's out there in the market. So integration is always very important. And to give you a short overview, this is a slide that shows marketing technology. And I think there are more than 500 companies here, or 500 products here on this slide, which is a mind-boggling number. But the truth is, every week we'll probably have another 100 or so coming to the market, and it's really difficult for us marketeers to know what is happening, what is important, what's the next hot trend, what do we need to integrate, on which social platform do we have to be, and who is actually going to win in this game, right? So our approach basically means instead of giving you a predefined suite of applications that we tell you are nicely integrated, we think that it's better, and for 95% of the companies we are absolutely sure that this is the case, that it's better to start with a different mindset, with an open mindset and with an open suite approach. And to give you an example how this looks like, basically you start with simple building blocks like Lego blocks here, and you can build great stuff out of it. That's the promise of the open suite approach, buildings like this. But of course, Magnolia actually isn't Lego blocks, but it's a little bit more complex than that. It's actually the heart, the hub of your communication. Something like this PC that you see here, that's about the size of 2 or 3 matchboxes. And the interesting thing about this, an open source project as well, is that you have processing power, you have a full-blown PC with lots of what we would call APIs in the software world, hardware interfaces in the hardware world. And using this as building block, you can start to build great customer experiences, like the Tube Core. The Tube Core Duo here pictured is a Kickstarter project, and it consists of a lot of components. Well, actually it's not a lot of components, but it's at its heart, it's one of those open source PCs, and as you can see, there's a couple of other components that neatly plug into that to provide you with an amazing system for home entertainment. So a great customer experience here. How does that translate into our approach with Magnolia? Well, we see Magnolia as the center stone, as the hub for your digital communication. This is where you manage all your content. And you will publish this to any number of channels. This is just an example here where we have the web, obviously mobile, newsletters, apps, landing pages, as well as many other channels that you might need. And on the other hand, we have the tools that you might already have or that you want to integrate into your web experience management suite. For instance, analytics, commerce, customer relationship management, or a personalization engine that you already have or want to add. And the way that we look at it, we have on the top here the multi-channel outbound capabilities of your suite, of your open suite, and at the bottom we have the integration or inbound part of our double funnel picture here. And across all of this you can then search and provide a unified experience for your customers. So the simplicity of this graph basically means everything that you have in your company, every backend, every system, every software, you can connect to Magnolia, you can unify all the content and then play it out to all your channels. And of course, you will also be able to get analytics and interaction and transactional content management into the system this way. And the beauty of this approach is manifold. For one thing, this is the only guarantee that you can, this will guarantee that you have a unified brand experience across all of your channels, because all of the content comes through one part of your software stack through Magnolia. So if you have, let's say, a promotion going on Facebook, you can be sure that because this promotion is managed through Magnolia, even if it comes from a third-party system or it goes through Magnolia, it can be played out in the same way to all the other channels. So this won't be confusing to your customers that might see one thing on one channel and a different thing on a different channel. That's what you want to avoid. Also, if you use the open suite approach, you can go step by step, and I'll come to this in a minute. So the open suite approach really from our end has support through a lot of different frameworks, a lot of different APIs. for instance, Spring, which is used by 50% of the global Fortune 5000 or so enterprises to build custom applications. We have the world's best Spring integration in Magnolia. There's CMIS, which is used by things like Alfresco, where we'll talk about in a minute. There's our Jackrabbit repository running the JCR API. There's the REST API that we have, WebDAV, and of course all the Java APIs, just to name a few possibilities you have to integrate with Magnolia. And these technologies have been used to actually provide integrations already with Magnolia. So we have a lot of things already going. This is all tried and proven stuff that's out there in the market, in production, and we're working on a lot more, so stay tuned for what is coming up later this year, also at the conference, where a lot of this stuff is going to be shown. Today we will focus on just 3 of the things that you see here. This is Alfresco, SAP, and Hybris. These are the 3 technologies that will be presented by the partners that come up in a minute. So in short, we position Magnolia as a really simple and flexible CMS that works just like your smartphone would, with apps that reduce the complexity. And Magnolia is engineered to be really the hub, the center of your communication. You can use an open suite approach to build your customer experience management. So with this, I want to hand the session over to the next speaker. I'll stick around for questions at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Boris. Hopefully that puts OpenSuite in a bit more context for you. I'd like to bring in our first partner at this point, who will present their Alfresco integration, and the partner being ProDyna. So Axel, over to you. Okay, so at this point I would like to hand over to our next presenter, Axel, who will introduce himself from ProDyna. Axel, over to you.
Thank you, Ben. My name is Axel Faust. I work for ProDyna, and we've developed a bidirectional integration between Alfresco and Magnolia. A bit about my person. I'm a senior consultant at ProDyna, software architect, mainly in the area of Alfresco, and our company is basically a technical consultancy company which is a partner of Magnolia and Alfresco, and we focus on the integration of different solutions into a complete solution suite for the customers. Basically, we live the concept of the open suite approach. For those of you who may not know Alfresco that much, a few words about Alfresco in general, so you can see the context where we come from and what the integration might be benefiting to the solution of Magnolia. Alfresco is an enterprise content management platform. It styles itself as the open platform for business critical content management and collaboration. Basically, it's an open source platform which covers an entire range of ECM aspects, functionalities, for example, collaboration within the company as well as B2B collaboration on content, on documents, content-centric business processes, so complex workflows with decision points, external application integration, records management, and basically it's the open enterprise content management solution for on-premise, cloud, and mobile. So we have different applications for all of these environments for users to interact with Alfresco. And if you want to understand how Alfresco might benefit Magnolia, we have to look at some use cases, and one potential use case is the use case around collaboration with assets, not actually the use case of exposing an asset via Magnolia from Alfresco, but the actual collaboration that creates or recreates, enhances an asset. And if you look at the current situation, or at the situation how asset collaboration usually happens, is that we have a set of authors, publishers with direct access to the assets stored in a web experience management system like Magnolia. But we have also some parties that are part to the collaboration process, but are usually external to the environment. For example, subject matter experts who know the material and can contribute much to the development of a specific asset, and marketing external production agencies, for example, who actually do the creation of specific assets or the planning. And the usual process for such a collaboration where those users are not connected to Magnolia is that the authors, publishers somehow submit the assets for overhaul to the external agencies, external partners and collaborators, and they then in some way or another use external systems, email or Dropbox or something like this, to interact with one another to exchange the content required for their specific piece of work. And at the end, somehow the result is submitted and potentially some additional assets are combined to one package. For example, video files can be combined with posters. This is kind of introduces a disconnect between the assets stored in Magnolia and any kind of content managed externally through that collaboration. And this is something where we can potentially use Alfresco to provide an integrated process that, that enables all of the participants in this process to interact with the same content without any kind of technical disconnect. And if you want to use Alfresco, there are certainly some potential ways to do this. For example, we have some on-premise functionality as well as business to B2B or cloud functionality that can help in this use case. If you look at the on-premise installation, we have functionalities around so-called sites, or we can call it work groups, which have different tools for users to organize and collaborate around content. For example, document libraries for managing assets and content, data lists for managing their to-do tasks and specific deadlines, for example, or even complex processes that manage the process. And if you look at the inclusion of external partners, like an external production agency or even cloud-based media services, we can make use of the Alfresco Cloud Service, which provides an integration with the on-premise Alfresco to allow a synchronization of specific assets to the cloud installation, where external parties can have access to it based on metadata, based on the permissions that you as a user of Alfresco set. And we can even create tasks for them in the external environment. And the Alfresco on-premise cloud integration will regularly synchronize any changes these external parties make to the on-premise location, so you have full control over your content even if it's situated in cloud. And in such a way, we have integrated the external parties without having to use any other system, without having a disconnect in terms of versioning of assets. We have all of the metadata as well as the version history on our side. And now the open suite approach from Magnolia already provides a couple of essentials that are necessary to enable this kind of integration. For example, based on the CMS technology and the digital asset management module, we already have access from external applications to Magnolia as a CMS repository with read-write access to manage assets remotely. For example, pushing assets from the collaboration environment from Alfresco to Magnolia and making them available for editors and authors of Magnolia. Additionally, with the upcoming release of the digital asset management module, we also have the capability from Magnolia to access external repositories and use them as asset providers, for example, so that users don't have to push assets anymore or are not forced to do that to be able to use them in Magnolia. They can just pull them from the external repository and use them in the web content in the web experience management suite of Magnolia. And furthermore, Magnolia also provides RESTful APIs which external processes, for example workflows, can use to push information about these external processes into Magnolia to make them available and accessible for Magnolia users. But there are still some open issues that we have to address in integrating an external system, external content management system like Alfresco based on CMS and RESTful services with Magnolia. One primary issue is the aspect of supporting specific metadata profiles or custom metadata and mapping them between those systems. The data model might be different depending on the implementation on the vendor of the specific CMS repositories, and we definitely have to map them to make them usable within Magnolia. And also the other way around in terms of pushing process information to other systems from Magnolia needs to be supported. There is currently, to my knowledge, no ready-made solution that provides such a functionality, for example, to push an asset from Magnolia to Alfresco so others can collaborate and kind of overhaul the asset for later use inclusion into the Magnolia platform. All in all, what we need is a ready-to-use public module that everyone can use to integrate Alfresco with Magnolia. And this is where our solution comes in, which is a bidirectional integration with Magnolia, between Magnolia and Alfresco. And basically, when we look at our feature plan, what this uses both in terms of how we enable or how we integrate these solutions. We are using a hybrid concept. That means we combine CMS and RESTful services to complement each other. For example, CMS doesn't provide access to workflows, whereas REST enables us to use basically any API exposed by a different system like Alfresco. And this approach is actually similar to what Alfresco already uses for its public and cloud API. So you can develop any kind of application that accesses the Alfresco Cloud API and makes use of all the CMS assets as well as the assets that are specific to Alfresco, the concepts that are specific to Alfresco via the REST API. And this hybrid concept allows us to abstract and delegate details to the specific implementation on the Alfresco side. For example, all a Magnolia instance has to do is push a content, an asset to Alfresco and say, okay, start an overhaul or asset collaboration process. And what the actual asset collaboration process does is a detail that's delegated to Alfresco that Magnolia doesn't have to know anything about. So we're using a command pattern here. In terms of feature plan, what we want to support with our integration is the ability for editors to submit assets from the asset app to Alfresco, to the collaboration environment for any kind of process that can take place there, to provide kind of a remote review capability via Pulse so that editors can view the current state of the document or the asset from within Magnolia without having to leave the system and go to Alfresco, and also provide kind of a synchronization or importing, updating functionality between CMS and between Alfresco and Magnolia based on CMS. One-time update import or scheduled updates so that, for example, every major version is automatically imported into Magnolia. And furthermore, we want to support renditions so that we can use Alfresco, for example, to pre-render some digital media, for example, videos in different resolutions, so we don't have to add these functionalities into Magnolia if it doesn't already provide it out of the box. Just kind of a rough overview of how such an interaction would look like. For example, from the Magnolia side, we would initiate the asset collaboration process in Alfresco via a REST command. And depending on the different versions of Alfresco and Magnolia in use, we can either fetch or push assets via CMS from Alfresco or push them to Alfresco depending on the actual implementation mode. And further along as the process is handled by the users in Alfresco, we can regularly schedule updates, fetch updates via the REST API for users in Magnolia. And if the process is complete, we can reintegrate the asset managed and edited in Alfresco via CMS into the asset directory, asset application of Magnolia. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I can give you a demo at this time, but some kind of a preview screenshots from the integration just to give you an overview of what it might look like in Magnolia. There's certainly more to come, but this should give you a rough idea. For example, in terms of the asset application, we will provide hooks into the asset application so that you can pull content, for example, new versions of an asset from Alfresco or from any external CMS repository, in fact, and submit specific assets, selected assets to Alfresco. The synchronization is not just some simple one pull synchronization. We want to enable the scheduled synchronization and even parameterize it so you can kind of mix and match your custom solution, how you need to do it, how your requirements actually mandate them. We will also provide a basic CMS browser within Magnolia so that you can actually browse any external CMS repository and fetch contents from them via that browser. And that might be reusable in your own custom solutions that you build on top of the platform. At the moment, to be honest, this is a work in progress. We will be finishing up the first release for the Magnolia conference in June. So we'll show a demo at that Magnolia conference. And our plan is to contribute to the open suite approach of Magnolia. So we will provide the basic non-enterprise features as a publicly available module within the Magnolia ecosystem via Forge or any other platform. So you can actually have read-write client services, CMS browser, and simple importing functionality in Magnolia community as well, and not require any enterprise subscription from Magnolia or Alfresco. So thank you for your attention, and for questions we will go into the Q&A session later on.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Axel. As Axel mentioned, this was a short insight into the integration. However, he will be presenting at Magnolia Conference next month, so the 25th and 26th of June will be a Magnolia Conference here in Basel in Switzerland. So I invite everyone to please go to the Magnolia site, have a look, and we would love to invite everyone here for the show and find out more about the presentations which you're seeing here today. In the email which follows up, we will also be offering everybody a 10% discount to the conference as well, so watch out for that email follow-up. I'd now like to move on to our next presenter, who will introduce himself, but this time it's Matteo from partner Tinext. So Matteo, welcome. I'm going to hand over keyboard rights to you, but I just warn everyone, last time I did that it just crashed my PowerPoint, so I'll just try this again, hopefully without a crash, just bear with me. Okay. So.
Yeah, yes, seems working. Okay, perfect. So many thanks, and please have my personal welcome to this webinar. I've been asked to present some brief information about a project almost ready to be launched. This project aims to replace an existing implementation of eval, a utility portal for one of the main energetic providers here in Lugano in the south of Switzerland. First of all, a very brief information about myself. My name is Matteo Pelucco, and I am a software engineer here in Tinext, a Magnolia certified partner. I've been working with Magnolia since version 3.5.8, when IS7 was a cutting-edge browser and Magnolia ran only on JSP, so a long time ago. But back to the project. This is the customer, the main energetic provider of Lugano and around. Electricity, water, gas, and heat as core activities, but it has activities also on logistics and infrastructures. Retail users are home users with a potential number of about 100,000. The portal needs to be restyled with a brand new responsive look and feel, with a concurrent CMS replacement under the hood. 23 business processes to be modeled. Each of them are driven by user data, and we are dealing with sensitive user data. In this project, Magnolia is used as a central integration framework. Due to its natural sense, it has been used as core component to orchestrate the dialogue between the final users and the legacy core systems of the customer, SAP and Alfresco. The first issue to address: we need to model 23 business processes. For instance, add a new contract, change user data like email, phone, whatever, view billing documents, communicate meta readings, view technical data, and many, many more. We need to adopt a generic solution to beat them all in a consistent way. The first idea coming to our minds was, okay, let's go with form builder, but unfortunately the standard form builder feature were not enough. But we extended it, introducing several interesting features like SAP-aware validators, multi-step navigation bar, step validators, scriptable default values for input fields like an eval, and finally, final summary step. Here you can see a single business process modeled with a multi-step form. Please notice the final step nested at the end. This allows consistent multi-step navigation and encapsulates a single business process in a single Magnolia website sub-tree. So everything is kept consistent. The look and feel is quite simple, but every form component has been customized to be usable with any device at any resolution, almost. In this picture, you can see the second step of the change payment method process, where user must choose the desired payment method. Another interesting form builder add-on, a step validator, where a backend logic can run to validate a single form step, combining user form data of that step and of the past steps. If the step condition is not satisfied, a user-provided validation error message appears and the user is blocked on this step. Here, instead, you can see how easy it can be to inject SAP validators logic to a front-end user data. The second major issue was related to the way how we connect to SAP. SAP BAPI, standard SAP API, are internally exposed via web services. Refactoring of this part was not in project scope, and unfortunately there were no documentation at all, only a few WSDL. Due to this constraint, each business process integration required a reverse engineer activity of the legacy solution. The JXWS generated client has been tested with a business process JUnit test suite. Each process at the end has been successfully replicated. Since this activity requires some time to complete, we used Magnolia inversion of control, a new feature of Magnolia 5, to decouple the data layer from the front-end presentation. A common interface and a dummy implementation allowed our front-end developer to work smoothly. When ready, the right back-end logic has been plugged to the front-end and model classes, simply changing one line of configuration in a module descriptor. This approach really helped a lot in the project economy. Not all data, unfortunately, are in SAP. For example, billing documents and other generic purposes communication documents are stored in their legacy DMS Alfresco. A soft reference, the ID of the document, is kept in SAP database. We decided to use a standard Alfresco API masquerading by another standard integration pattern, a Magnolia servlet. The servlet ensures that each document download is secured for the requesting user, double-checking the real user SAP permission for each request at any time. Here you see the example, if it's coming. Yes, okay. Here you see what I mean. A document search is performed using SAP API. For each SAP result, the download link brings user to the Alfresco document, passing through the secure proxy servlet. The final major issue was related to public user management. They are real SAP entities, so nothing is stored in Magnolia JCR. There are no well-known SELs. User permissions are all data-driven. Just to make an example, user main menus and user actions availability depend on how many contracts the user has and their types, so it's extremely dynamic. Unfortunately, the standard Magnolia security, the poor module, ACLs, groups, and roles, does not suit this model. So, we plug our security model in a different way. We injected our logic in a common page renderer that double-check for each user request the actual user permissions against SAP. The same logic is also exposed, of course, in a simplified way to freemarker to allow our front-end developer to deal with the simple if statement for punctual interface customization. This solution is very simple, effective, easy to test even for a front-end developer, and to debug. And here you can see a simple login callback prompted to you if you are trying to access any page of the system and you are not logged in. I think we are at the end. Yes, here's some points to remember. Magnolia is very powerful when used as a central integration framework. It provides a lot of injection points to use and some well-known integration patterns that can simplify a lot your work. Form Builder is one of them, and if your project contains forms, wizards, guided procedures, user choices, don't forget to use it. When you have uncertain conditions, mock the solution. This speeds up the project bootstrap, allowing work parallelization and fast prototyping. In this mock activity, Magnolia 5 IOC, version of control mechanism, allows you to switch from a mock system to a real one in very few seconds. Last but not least, if you have to deal with sensitive user data, security must be on top of your solution feature set. And that's it. If you are interested to go in depth, or if you are simply curious, don't hesitate to ask your question in the Q&A session, and in any case, I will be a working example of this implementation will be presented as well at the next Magnolia conference, and I will be very glad to answer to all your questions directly there. So thanks.
Thanks, Matteo. Will be a short presentation, but we appreciate that. That's a very useful insight, and we look forward to seeing the full presentation at Magnolia conference next month. So,
thanks.
Okay. Okay, moving swiftly on to our third and final Magnolia partner, WebTizer, based in Switzerland, and I'd like to introduce Paul. Are you there, Paul?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so that's great.
I'm just going to give you rights to change the slides, and yeah, if you could introduce your subject, your integration, and yourself, then yeah, away you go.
So for myself, I am Paul Tinso. I've been working with Hybris on Hybris platform since version 2.6 or so, since 2007, and at the moment I work for Infocentric for WebTizer in Zurich as a Hybris and senior CQ5 developer. So for today we are going to talk about the integration of Magnolia and Hybris. So for this I'm going to say a few words on Hybris, maybe for those who don't yet know what Hybris is. Hybris is a very powerful multi-channel content management system. It's an e-commerce solution. It offers B2B as well as B2C solutions. It is extensible. Meaning it is modular, and it offers services like cart and checkout services, catalog and product management functionalities, pricing, payments, tax and fraud management, promotions, coupons, order management, customer services, warehouse management, and quite a lot more. So today we are integrating Hybris as a back-end system with Magnolia. So retrieving content from Hybris and offering them to Magnolia as a front-end system. That's the goal for our integration today. And our REST API communicates with Magnolia on both the author and the public instance, meaning we can have access directly to the stage catalog or the online catalog, meaning you can work on content on both catalogs while one is online, you could make some adjustments while preparing the stage catalog for a future live transformation or so, or switching. So the areas of use which we covered in this integration are the cart content, so the shopping basket. Then we deliver a list of products for the product teasers as well as product carousel. Then we deliver a list of categories, maybe for the navigation or for any menus, and then product details. So in this slide, we see the bidirectional communication between Hybris and Magnolia, both on the public as well as on the author instance. So from Magnolia side, a REST call is made to Hybris to either get information of a product or a list of products, categories or a single category, as well as cart information, either just to display the cart content or to manipulate the cart content, meaning to add or update the number of products in the cart. And Hybris, or our extension in Hybris, returns an XML representation of the required information, both on the online as well as on the stage instance. So on this slide, we see the area of use in more detail. On the first image, we have the product carousel with the image as well as the name of the product. And one can click on detail to get to the details, to the detail page, which is image 2. And on the image, on the second image, we have the image of the camera and the long description of that product, as well as the possibility to add the product to the shopping basket or the cart. Then a related product, which is also displayed, which is also in the detailed view with the same content as above. On the right, we have the content of the shopping basket or the cart. So we have one product and the total price of the cart, and from there we can go out to the checkout process. So for our REST call, the URL will look something like this. We have the host, the Hybris host, then the path, the context path, which is in this case Magnolia WS/REST, and then we'll have to give in the type, which will be /products if we need a list of products. Then the catalog version to decide whether to get the product from the live catalog or the stage catalog. Then we need the language, in this case DE, for the localized content, so that we determine whether to get contents in English, German, French, Japanese, Chinese, or whatever. And then we have two optional properties or parameters, in this case the offset as well as the limit, that we use only for the list. So when we're getting a list of products, we want to decide whether to get 10 or 20 or 30 or 1,000. And for the product detail, we need the product code. So in this case, we won't need the list offset and limit parameters, but just the product code. And we could also give the currency we want the prices to be displayed in. So a price will be delivered only in that currency, and in case there is no price for that currency, then we get no price. On the next slide, we have the category list as well as the category detail REST call. So the context path is the same as that of the product list and products, just that the type in this case is categories. The catalog version and the catalog are the same as for the product call, the language, and then in this case we have the category code for the category detailed content. The next step is the next thing we have is the card. So on the one hand, we retrieve the content of the card to display in Magnolia, in which case the type is the card, and then we need the session ID to reactivate or to open a session of a user that was opened and not locked out, because if the user already locked out, it means the session was already invalidated and we could no longer activate it. So from this we could get the content of the card. So from that we get the number of products in the card as well as the total price. The next issue is manipulation of the card content, where we could add a product or update a product already in the card. So in this case, the path, the context path is the same. The type is card. Then we need the session ID to be able to get the session of a particular user. Then the operation parameter, which is either add to card or update card entry. Then we need the product code of the product we want to add, update or remove from the card. And in case of update, we need the electronic product catalog or the catalog version, so as to be able to retrieve the catalog, the product which we want to add, so that we don't mess up between the live and the stage catalog. So that will be it from my side. I think I hand over now to the moderator.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Paul. You can hand over back to me. That's fine. Okay, then. Thanks to our panelists so far. I hope that's given you some useful insights into OpenSuite and the various integrations which can be included within that. We do have questions coming in. Everybody's invited to submit more questions, so we'll use the next final 10 minutes to go through these questions which we have here. But submit them, and if we don't get a chance to do it now, we'll certainly get back to you after the webinar. Okay, so here we go. The first one I have here is regarding SAP. So that's one for you, Matteo. How did you expose the SAP logic to freemarker?
Okay, the integration here is done just encapsulating the SAP logic in utility, Java utility, and then using the SDK renderer context attributes, we can just inject another object, a model object, directly in freemarker. And another point to do that is to make available to the form component is to change the SDK, the renderer of form components from freemarker to SDK in order to use the same context attribute object.
Okay, thanks, Matteo.
Hope to have been clear enough.
Yeah, I think so. Incidentally, we will be providing contact details for the presenters in the email follow-up, so if anybody does have more questions or wants more information, feel free to get in touch directly with the partners who have presented. I have an Alfresco related question here. To what extent is the CMIS browser dependent on Alfresco being used as the CMIS repository, and can Alfresco be replaced with a different CMIS repository, and which features would be affected by this?
Okay, so I will be answering to this. The CMS browser actually is not dependent on Alfresco in terms of displaying any kinds of content. The module is not dependent on a specific Alfresco extension of CMS. It uses basic functionality defined in the specification 1.0 and 1.1, so you can put any CMS compliant repository in the backend. The only features that would be affected if you replace Alfresco would obviously be the additional features where we use REST API specific to Alfresco, for example, initiating processes in Alfresco or accessing renditions which are not yet fully supported in CMS. You can access existing renditions, but you can't trigger creation of new renditions.
Okay. Thanks, Axel. I have questions for all areas here, but perhaps we'll take a Hybris one, give you a chance, Paul. So, Paul, why should we use Magnolia as a CMS on the front end for Hybris, although Hybris already offers a store front end? Hi, Paul, are you there? Okay, well, have a think about that and come back
Hi,
to us.
sorry, I muted my mic and forgot completely and just started speaking. Okay, there are, like I was saying, there are a couple of reasons why we might want to use Magnolia as a Hybris front end. I think the first reason, which I mean to the business guys especially might be very important, is the cost. Because Hybris being modular, for every module, of course, you will have to pay for. And for a customer who already has Magnolia and who already has workers or employees who are well versed with Magnolia, I don't think it would make more sense to kind of migrate everything to Hybris. But meaning the cost factor here would definitely be enormous. Not only staffing the workers or the employees, but I mean Hybris license is also not that cheap. And then secondly, it's going to take some time for people who are not well versed with Hybris to get to learn to use Hybris, and that also will also generate some extra cost. So I think on the cost factor, it is it's a very positive thing to use Magnolia as a front end. And I mean, personally, if I'm already well versed with Hybris or with Magnolia, I would definitely want to remain a Magnolia developer than want to learn something new with the uncertainties one never knows. So I think those are the few reasons I could find, but I'm sure there are quite a lot more.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay, I have another Alfresco question here. CMIS is anything but a set-in-stone standard. There are optional capabilities, custom data models, and vendor-specific extensions. How do you deal with this?
So for the Alfresco Magnolia integration, or actually CMS Magnolia integration, we provide the ability to plug in different kinds of back-end connectors or back-end connector factories, so you can plug your specific communication in a component into the integration that handles potentially specifics for Alfresco or another back-end system, for example, the CMS extensions that these vendors can supply. And we also provide a way via pluggable factories to customize the different parameters for establishing a session between Alfresco or Magnolia and the CMS repository. So you can have any kind of authentication mechanism, for example. And furthermore, the features that are not yet supported in CMS, this is something where the collaboration or the complementary REST API would come in, where you would just plug in additional action independent of CMS into the CMS browser and use the information from the asset, for example, the URL of the server, to access the different API on the back end without having to go through the CMS API for everything.
Okay, thank you, Axel. A question here, I think this is regarding SAP. Which pattern did you use to decouple the work of data integrators and front-end developers, Matteo?
Yes, I think it is referred to the inversion of control. So basically, we have a Java interface that collects all the remote requests to SAP. This interface has been implemented into different implementation. One is the final, and it's the real one, and takes a long time to be complete for the reason I mentioned in the presentation. The other is a very dummy one with very simple static text and objects, and it's kept in memory. So using a module descriptor and the component declaration, we just inject the right implementation for the front-end installation and for the back-end installation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're just about out of time, so I'll probably just hand over now to Boris, who can answer the final question that has just come in. Boris, do you want to take that final question and wrap up the webinar a little bit?
Okay, so thanks Ben, thanks everybody. We have a final question here. It says we want to use Magnolia CMS in combination with Grails, and if maglev, which is the Grails plugin, is still maintained. And as far as we know, it's actually not an easy answer, but as far as we know, this is used in production. You'll find out about the people who wrote this. This is a community project. It's Kimmo Björnsson, and it's from Sweden. So just get in touch with him and you know, just ask him what's happening with it. These guys, they do a lot of projects, and I'm pretty sure that they'll upgrade the maglev module as soon as they need it for their next project to Magnolia 5. So, but this is, you know, it's built on Blossom, on top of Blossom, as you know, and yeah, it shouldn't be a big issue. Good, this was it. I want to thank all my co-presenters and Ben for moderating this, and obviously everybody that tuned in. As Ben said earlier on, we have a conference coming up. It has a massively attractive list of speakers and use cases across technical, marketing, and business tracks. Well, those that have been there, you know that you want to come again. It's a fantastic event, and Ben will send you invites with a discount code, as he said. So I'd love to see you there, you know, have a beer with you, talk about technology, anything else that's up on your mind, feedback, etc. So this would be great. And with this, I'd say that's it from our side. Thank you very much, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you very much.